Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is Friday. It's November 8th. Today is day 399. Greetings. I'm in Amman, Jordan. It's it's 1 o'clock in the morning, but I had a lovely afternoon. I spent most of the day with Christians here in Amman. I spent several hours with various different leaders, bishops, priests, advocates from Protestant, Orthodox, Catholic denominations, learning about the ways that people are continuing to do good when the situation in the Middle East is just so devastating and so incredibly challenging. And so I wanted to start by saying, take, for example, this amazing jacket that I'm wearing. I don't know if you can tell, it actually says on it the name of the organization that made it. It's called Rafidin, and it's made by Iraqi refugees that live here in Jordan. Iraqi refugee women, and it was a program that was started by a Catholic priest whose name is Father Mario Cornioli. I don't know if any of you are familiar with his ministry and work here. He started programs mobilizing refugees, women, teaching them skills. He's Italian, and he brought over Italian fashion designers and teaching women workshops to implement through the Habibi Association, learning vocational training skills in garment making. And then men who are Iraqi refugees have been given the opportunity from his family recipes to learn how to cook. And so I had this most amazing Italian meal tonight, homemade cheese and pasta, and it's this restaurant has the reputation for being one of the best Italian restaurants in Amman. And it's completely run by displaced people from northern Iraq, light in the midst of just what would otherwise seem like a hopeless situation. So I've been inspired and encouraged by the ministry of Father Cornioli, who's seeking to be a servant as he serves and lives out his pastoral calling here in Jordan. I met this afternoon with Pastor Christophoros, who is the head of the Jordanian Council of Churches. There's only about 140,000 Christians here in Jordan, which is less than 1% of the entire population of the community here. And we talked about ways that Orthodox and the broader ecumenical Christian community can work together to support the sustainability of the Christian community in the Middle East, it was under so much pressure before October of last year, but now Christians are leaving at unprecedented numbers, in large part because Christians can often get visas to be able to leave. And so the challenges that the Christian community is experiencing, the numbers are dwindling, and literally the sustainability of the church in the Holy Land, the broader Holy Land where it began, Lebanon and Jerusalem and Palestine, and even in Israel, it's under threat. The very existence of the church where it began is a question of whether or not it will continue to be here in years to come. So let me summarize some of the other realities and things that have happened in the last 24 hours or so in Gaza. Israeli forces increased bombardment and new evacuation orders yesterday on the 7th. I think it was the 7th. They created a fresh wave of displacement from northern Gaza. Palestinian officials have accused Israel of carrying out a plan of ethnic cleansing. Also from yesterday, the official number of people who have been killed in North Gaza since the 6th of October of this year, according to the government office. They published this on the 5th of November. So from early October to November 5th, 1,800 people were killed in North Gaza. Incidents today in North Gaza. This morning, Israeli forces carried out a deadly airstrike on a crowded home that belonged to the Al-Assisi family or Al-Assi family in the Beit Lahia area. At least 9 people died. Several other people were still unaccounted for under the rubble. In South Gaza, the Ministry of Health Emergency and Ambulance Unit recovered the body of someone killed, and they treated additional injuries following an Israeli attack on a group of fishermen that were on the beach in Rafah City. There was a man who was killed, who had been struck by shelling while he was on one of the beach huts on the Rafah coast in the South Gaza Strip. And another person was killed. Their body was retrieved after an Israeli airstrike targeted Kiryat al-Adad area of Rafah in the South Gaza Strip. Israeli naval forces were reported after an Israeli airstrike targeted the home of Abu Mala in the area of the Al-Nusrat refugee camp in central Gaza. And in Gaza City early Friday morning, at least 9 people from the Hamada family were killed in an Israeli attack on the Al-Daraj neighborhood in the center of Gaza City. Lest we think that the killing and bombing and the attacks of Gaza have stopped, they have not. That's the main point I want you to hear from the report that I just gave. The Israeli army has distanced itself from an Israeli Defense Forces general's suggestion that North Gaza evacuees will not be allowed to return, said a spokesperson. He said those comments were taken out of context and they don't reflect the objectives of the IDF. Israel's ousted defense minister Gallant yesterday reportedly told hostages' families that Netanyahu rejected a hostages for peace deal against the advice of security officials, and that the IDF has achieved all of their objectives already in Gaza. An Israeli airstrike killed at least 27 people sheltering in a Gaza building, relief officials said. Separately, an Israeli airstrike on the refugee camp school building west of Gaza City killed at least 4 people, CNN reported. A Hebrew news source reported that a third axis has been announced in Gaza. They said that the current Israeli plan over the next 10 weeks between now and when President Trump is said to take office, the Israeli army will complete the establishment of what's being called a third axis. So the first axis is the Philadelphia corridor in the south, and then the next Netzarim axis, and that evacuating the areas of the northern Gaza Strip in preparation for evacuating Gaza City when Trump enters the White House. So they're saying that there's going to be more of what's already taken place, the Netzarim corridor, the Philadelphia corridor, and now that there's, more of that taking place with the evacuation now of Gaza City being what's next on the list. Hamas, in a statement, called for mass demonstrations and mobilization against the continued Israeli war against Gaza. That happened today. They said, we emphasize the importance of a global popular movement to support the people of the Gaza Strip who've been subjected to a continuous war of extermination for more than 13 months. This is Hamas. They said, quote, we call on the masses of the West Bank to continue the intensify the movement of the support for Gaza, to support the prisoners. We emphasize the necessity of the free people of the world, especially the Arab and Islamic world, to go out in all squares and fields. And again, this is a direct quote, in defense of the Palestinian people's right to life and freedom, end quote. The U.S. in the past week discussed establishing a channel for Washington to raise and discuss civilian harm incidents in Gaza, said the State Department spokesperson Miller yesterday. Israel has made some progress, according to the Defense Secretary Austin. He reported that yesterday on getting aid into Gaza, but more needs to be done. I feel like the Defense Secretary is standing on his own in that perspective. Ireland intends to join South Africa in the ICJ, the International Court of Justice, genocide case against Israel. And in South Lebanon, again, this is from a Hebrew news source, Hebrew language news source in Israel. The Israeli force that was hit yesterday by Hezbollah missiles in Avavim, which resulted in the death of a soldier and the injury of others, was operating in South Lebanon and then was targeted after they left South Lebanon. And Hezbollah targeted today, this was this morning, a base that was in southeast of Haifa called the Ramat David base, and the airport there today, and they were singing O Nasrallah. Of course, that's the name of the former Hezbollah leader who was killed last month. An Israeli strike on a checkpoint in the city of Sidon in Lebanon yesterday killed 3 Lebanese citizens and injured 6 UN peacekeeping forces. According to the Lebanese Health Ministry, Israeli attacks on Lebanon killed at least 53 people in the last day. And Hezbollah will welcome any effort to stop the war in Lebanon, but will wait for actions, not claims, from the incoming Trump administration, a Hezbollah lawmaker said yesterday. The UN cultural agency, UNESCO, said that it's going to convene a meeting later this month to consider enhanced protections of Lebanese cultural sites amid Israeli bombardment. And the Israeli army spokesperson today announced the death of an Israeli soldier from a battalion who succumbed to his wounds that were sustained in late October during a battle in South Lebanon. The Houthi rebels in Yemen earlier today shot down what bystanders have described as an American drone, but the U.S. military has said they're investigating the incident. And Iranian-backed militias in Iraq made an announcement today. This was a second statement that they said, in continuation of our approach in resisting the occupation, in support of the people of Palestine and Lebanon, in response to the massacres committed by usurping entity against civilians, including children, women, and the elderly. The Mujahideen of the Islamic Resistance in Iraq attacked this morning a military target in the north of the occupied territories for the second time using drones. And the Islamic Resistance confirms the continuation of its operations in destroying strongholds of the enemy at an escalating pace. So that, again, was from Iranian-backed militias in Iraq. In Jerusalem today, there were Friday prayers at the Al-Aqsa Mosque. The Israeli police violently attacked Palestinian worshippers, most of whom were young men, preventing them from entering the mosque. There were videos shown of Israeli forces beating up men, including at least one man who was beaten by a group of soldiers. And in the West Bank, Rabbis for Human Rights reported that Jewish settlers attacked their members with stones and batons as they were arriving to aid Palestinians who were harvesting olives, adding that one member was lightly wounded and 3 others were detained by security forces. It was also announced today in Israel that Prime Minister Netanyahu appointed Yael Later to be Israel's next ambassador to the U.S. Before immigrating to Israel, Later was a member of Meir Chahon's Jewish Defense League. More recently, he served as the chief of staff to Netanyahu. He was a spokesperson for the Yesha Settlers Council and is a senior fellow at the Kohelet Policy Forum, the engine behind Netanyahu's government's judicial coup. Later will replace the serving ambassador Michael Herzog on January 20th. In Ramallah, President Abbas had a phone call with President-elect Donald Trump, congratulating him on his victory. He wished him success in his new term, leading the United States and America towards progress and prosperity, expressing his readiness to work with President Trump to achieve a just and comprehensive peace based on international legitimacy. And President Trump stressed that he will work to stop the war, his readiness to work with President Abbas and the concerned parties in the region and the world to make peace in the region. There was also a major attack. I wanted you to hear this. It was an anti-Semitic act of violence, horrific violence at a Dutch soccer game last night. 10 Israelis who attended a Europa League match in Amsterdam were wounded after assailants targeted Israeli soccer fans at several locations across the city, according to Israel's foreign ministry. The Dutch prime minister condemned the attacks as unacceptable anti-Semitic acts, saying that we failed the Jewish community in the Netherlands during World War II, and last night we failed them again. Videos online showed assailants asking Israelis where they were from, beating anyone they believed to be Israeli. Others shouted "Free Palestine" as they hurled assaults in Arabic. One fan told Israel's news station that he was attacked by 15 or so young Arab men, some of whom were armed with knives and clubs. He left the game with his son. Fans who spoke to Haaretz said that at least some of the incident appeared to be planned ambushes. I also wanted to let you know we're having a prayer service where we're joining online another part of the Middle East, or at least Christians of the Middle East, another war-torn part of the world, Nagorno-Karabakh, or Artsakh, to our Armenian Christian siblings. More than 100,000 or so have been displaced from Artsakh, Nagorno-Karabakh in the past couple of years. We invite you to join us. It's a prayer service for the captive Artsakh Armenians. In the last week, the Armenian Church diocese around the world received a communication from the Mother See of Etchmiadzin, which is the Holy Cathedral in Yerevan in Armenia. regarding the plight of the Artsakh Armenians who are still being held captive in Azerbaijan, 1 year after the ethnic cleansing of Nagorno-Karabakh, 4 years after the surprise attack and subsequent war that happened there. His Holiness Karakin II, the Catholicos of the Armenians, is having a prayer service that we'll be joining online on Sunday, November 10th. And so we invite you to join us in solidarity with the Armenian Orthodox Church, which is a part of our membership at Churches for Middle East Peace. So may God go before us in the name of Christ. Amen.